This episode is brought to you by Muntons Malts, a company that is passionate about providing premium malts to brewers worldwide. For over a century, Muntons has been a leading supplier of brewing and distilling malts, offering the finest British malted barley on the market. You can experience the difference Muntons offers by joining a recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club, because every kit that ships out now includes premium Muntons malt. You know, we've known the Muntons crew for a long time, and I can tell you, friend, you're going to love brewing with their grains. Ask your local supply shop to carry Muntons malts, or homebrewers can join our Trub Club at homebrewhappyhour.com/club, be a part of the community, and come brew with us. Thank you, Muntons, for supporting our efforts and homebrewers worldwide. Today's show is brought to you by Hopsdirect.com. Grown in the esteemed Yakima Valley on the Peterball family farm, Hopsdirect.com offers the widest variety of hops available online at incredibly competitive pricing. It's simple. They grow hops, they sell hops, and they ship hops straight from their family-owned farm to your doorstep. Producing the highest quality hops is Hopsdirect.com's passion, and they're proud to be an independent grower in the craft beer industry. Go to Hopsdirect.com right now and get what you need to make your brew day better. That's Hopsdirect.com. Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch-right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial Yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial Yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Discussing all things related to craft beer and brewing with Horst Dornbusch. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 393. I had a little bit of a mess up. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. And if you, my friend, have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you could email me, joshua@homebrewhappyhour.com, or even better, call it in. Leave a voicemail to 325-305-6107. And when I use your voicemail question or feedback, preferably a question, on a future episode, you get yourself a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Stubing, joined as always by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com right there, Mr. James Carlson, the President and Chief Keg Washer of kegconnection.com over there, Mr. Todd Burns, and a special guest, our favorite special guest. He is the author, or let me say what I wrote down. Well-known brewer, author, beer judge, and speaker. You are also the author of our favorite book of all time, Alt-Beer History, Brewing Techniques, and Recipes. It is Mr. Horst Dornbusch. My friend, thank you so much for joining us, Horst. How are you doing?
Overworked, not enough fun, but I think we can change that now that I'm here. And
That's right. You've joined the party. We are so happy to have you.
Do I also get $25?
Yes, you did a $10 voucher to Uber Eats for being on the show. So we will tell me where to send that. We asked you to come on the show. Todd and I saw you at Craft Brewers Conference. It was great catching up with you, and we got you on our schedule, or we got on your schedule, one of those, and you were gracious enough to come on the show, and you even presented this whole format that we're doing today, where it was our audience tries to stump you with a question. And what we've decided, well, a lot of them ask questions that aren't even trying to stump you. They just want your expertise. But if they do stump you, they don't just get a $25 gift card. They get a $50 gift card to Cat Connection. So I got a ton of questions, a lot of
I should have played stupid. So
Oh, the Fitz is in. I like that conspiracy. The Fitz is in. Horst will be like, I don't know how beer tastes like that. That would be a great episode. Before I get to all the fun and all that and catching up with you, let me get through the quickest I can of this small talk. Guys, if you want to brew this month's Trub Club recipe, go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. Sign up at a recipe receiving tier. You're still going to get the Summer Nights Grapefruit Pale Ale. It's only the 24th that we're recording this, but this is technically the last call because next week's episode will publish after July. This year is flying by. So right now, last call for podcast listeners. Obviously, if you follow us on social media and all that, you'll see all the posts, but patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. You can join a recipe receiving tier, get this delicious kit shipped out to you. Thank you to our sponsors, Muntons Malt, hopsdirect.com, and of course, Imperial Yeast. And it's such a great time to have the author of the Alt book because we are still having registration open for the Alt-Pokal 2024 Altbier World Championship. Don't criticize that I'm calling it the World Championship, Horst. That's just American marketing. We do that here. That's just what we do. Registration is available. Go to homebrewhappyhour.com, click on Alt-Pokal at the top of the page. You could also just go to altpokal.com. The event is October 24th through the 26th, so you have tons of time to brew your alt, condition your alt, and ship it to us to see if you have the best alt beer in the country. Again, my apologies, Horst. I thought
it was the world. What do you mean the country? What are you
You're right.
about?
The world, because it's the World Championships. We do
so
that.
I was questioned about this in Germany when I showed somebody the contest, and they said, you can't do that. There's protection of the... And I was like, I know, but we don't follow the rules in America.
It's the Wild West, man. So we are
there is no, to the best of my knowledge, there is no EU protection about Altbier.
Okay.
It only applies to Kölsch.
Okay. Kolsch is actually where I was actually in Cologne, and I was showing them the Kolsch cup, so I should have said that. But
they were correct. They were correct. But the problem is if they want to sue you in America using EU law, it is almost certain that the case will be thrown out before it starts.
Oh, yeah. I'm a protected American. Yeah. We're going to start world wars over here.
Well, did I tell you I'm a dual citizen? So
you are.
I can be held liable in both countries.
Oh, nice.
That's true. So, like I said, we're doing the Stump Horse Challenge. Before I get to that, I just want to spend like 5 minutes of catching up. It's been a very long time since we've had you on the show. Horst, what have you been up to? Please tell me you're writing another book, but what have you been up to? How is the life of Horst Dornbusch right now?
Oh, my God. We don't have enough time on this show for that. So if you open up the new brewer that came out today online and will be mailed very soon, you'll find 2 articles of mine in there. One about the importance of pH throughout the entire brewing process, and another one about how to brew Gotlandsdricka. And if you don't know what that is, it's a beer indigenous to the island of Gotland, which is the largest island in the Baltic Sea, and it is at the northeast corner of Sweden. And it's the only indigenous Swedish beer, and it's made with juniper berry and birch smoked malt, which you can no longer get in this country. Nobody makes it, but it is a GABF and World Beer Cup category. So you either have to smoke your own birch smoked malt, or you have to order it from a supplier in Stockholm. And I supply the address as well. It's a very rare bird, a very interesting one. And I did travel to Gotland, and I tasted 3 authentic Gotlandsdrickas while I was there.
How was that experience? I imagine, have you had the style before you even went there?
Did I have what, a style?
Did you ever try that style of beer?
No.
Okay.
No. But I mean, I read up about it. There are a few items that you can find online. And basically, I interviewed the brewers that make it over there. I took notes, and Then I composed the recipe based on what they told me, and I gave one original recipe, and then I adapted what they use over there so that an American home or craft brewer could imitate it to various degrees of authenticity.
That's incredible. I admire, Todd, you and Todd are cut from the same cloth in regards to it's seeking out new styles, brewing things foreign to. I am stuck in, very straightforward beer, and I'm happy with it. I found my niche, and I just stick with it. But you obviously have the Alt book, and the other one's on Hellas, right? Isn't that the other?
That's from the 20th century. That's ancient. I would write these things very differently now, because now we have very, very different and much more advanced and diverse raw materials available to us. So a lot of the stuff is outdated because it was written to what I call the age of innocence, when we were all more enthusiastic than knowledgeable. And I hope nowadays I can be boring and knowledgeable.
Oh my gosh, that could be the title of my memoir. My goodness.
No, it couldn't. It would just be boring.
The first one, dummy. You weren't listening. The first one.
Okay.
Enthusiastic.
For you guys.
Yeah,
Okay?
Enthusiastic, but unknowledgeable. That part. God. Well, yeah, you thought I was talking about boring and knowledgeable. That totally describes me. Bald, boring.
My father has a famous quote about certain people. He says, often wrong, but never in doubt.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, that wouldn't be me. That would not be me. No, that would turn me into a very good politician. And
that's right.
It happens not to be my profession.
Absolutely. It is, like I said, it is so great to have you. And I sincerely appreciate you proposing this format, because it got a lot of excitement from our audience, not just because of the increased gift card, but it's not common that, I'm very spoiled, Horst. I have access to you. We have access to the industry. And so I sometimes take it for granted. A lot of our audience was sending in questions because this is not a typical thing, right? To get the input or the advice or expertise from a true professional. I mean, how long have you been in the industry? I don't want to make up a number. I don't want to age you, but you've been around a while.
Yes, unfortunately. I founded my company in 1993. That was a craft brewery in Massachusetts, but I have been homebrewing since 1971.
Wow.
I was one of the first and totally illegal homebrewers in the United States.
That's incredible. 71.
I was a legal immigrant at the time, but I was already a criminal. Which I think, if a politician were to hear me now, I think they would cite me as an argument why we should close the borders.
That's right. Oh, yeah. He was doing.
Get him out of here.
We got to keep those Germans out of here. Yeah.
No, those Germans.
He was doing what back then? Yeah. Build the wall. Well, for what? The homebrewers. They're coming.
Homebrewers are coming.
That is already a wall. It's called Iceland. But the boat on which I came was able to circumnavigate it without hitting an iceberg. So
that's good.
That is so funny.
That was in 1969.
That's incredible.
So you came over on a boat, on a ship. You didn't fly over.
No, I was one of the last immigrants to come by boat.
Wow.
And I arrived in August 1969 in New York and discovered there is no beer in America, which was the reason why I decided to figure out how I can make my own beer, because I had no intention of going back. And so my first batch of beer that I made was with hop-flavored malt extract, Domino sugar, and Fleischmann yeast. It tasted awful, but it had it had flavor. It was awful flavor, but it did have flavor. So that was the start of my brewing career. Then I became almost respectable. And then I reverted back to beer, and here I am talking to you guys I don't know what that says about me.
I know, right? I know. Your career, you're on Homebrew Happy Hour. I apologize. Somebody on Reddit called us painful recently, so I'm trying to change that image of us. I was like, bald, I can accept, but painful.
I was going to bring it up, but I know we're trying to rush through small talk. But did you lose your hat, or what's going on?
No. Well, I don't know what's going on with this unicorn pimple that I'm growing. Apparently.
Oh, I thought that was a third eye. I'm sorry, but anyway, I just thought I'd never seen it before because of
no. Lately, I've been going without the cap. Bald is beautiful, or something.
It is, yeah. Bald
something.
is beautiful.
I don't know. I'm going to be
have a hat too.
Hold on, I think my hair's a little off.
Anyway,
by the way, you guys told them that you did not give me the questions in advance.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm going to be hit with. And you also told them that if I don't know, I won't BS you. I will say I don't have the answer. So I will be totally honest, even if it is to my embarrassment. Okay?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect.
I did. And in fact, Horst, I didn't give the questions to James or Todd either.
Oh, really?
Correct. It's just me. And so I'm going to
the only wise guy.
I'm going to pretend like I'm the smart one. Oh, yeah. Well, here's how I would have answered it, Horst. No, I don't do homework, but I did. I'm the only one who knew the question. So let me see if I got the board going, because I do actually have, I think, a little screen thing too. Got some theme music. It is time up. Oh, there we go. On the screen. The Stump Horse Challenge. Let me get some crowd noise. Oh my goodness. I came so prepared. This is the most prepared I've ever been for this show. Horst Dornbusch is taking your questions on this week, and if you can stump the champ, I refuse to call you a chump, Horst. If you can stump the champ, get yourself a $50 gift card to catconnection.com. So right now, starting it off, Mr. Dornbusch, it's a mixture of voicemails and it's a mixture of emails and text messages. So we're going to start off with a voicemail question just for you. It's our buddy Joel from Montana. If you need me to replay anything or whatever, don't be a stranger. Let me know. I'll have it cranked up pretty loud. So
Big Sky Country. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. He's from Montana, Big Sky Country. Here's a question from Joel from Montana.
Hello, Homebrew Happy Hour trio and Mr. Dornbusch. This is Joel from Montana. I don't believe that my question, but here goes anyway. It's about yeast expression, or I call it yeast stress, whichever way you want to state it. Long story short, I brewed a Belgian quad about a year ago, and on my brew day, everything went wrong. I had stuck sparge, my thermometer was way off, so I believe that when I pitched my yeast, my wort was actually like higher than I had expected. I'm assuming when I touched the fermenter, it was pretty warm, so I'm going to assume it was probably over 100. Anyway, because I said I would do the long story short thing, I'll try to stick to that. It turned out to be the best batch I had made, and since then I've tried to replicate it 4 times, and it just isn't close. Obviously, I did not have stuck sparges, and I didn't use that same defective thermometer, but I feel like Captain Ahab chasing my whale and never catching it. I haven't been able to do this, so if Horst or any of you know, how do I get that delicious ripened banana flavor from my Belgian yeast? If you could answer that, I would be grateful. Thank you all for your professional advice. And Sensei Stubing, you are the single greatest podcast host from Texas that I'm aware of. You guys are great. Thank you so much.
I should have edited out the qualifier at the end. They know how to get their question on the show, Horst. It's usually by sucking up to me. But okay, did the question make sense about the delicious ripened banana flavor from his Belgian yeast strain? How would you go about replicating that?
Very simple. Different yeast strains produce different fermentation byproducts. Banana flavor is produced by a chemical called isoamyl acetate. It is issued forth by the yeast by certain strains of yeast, specialty yeast during fermentation that are at a relatively high temperature. The gentleman said that when he touched the fermenter, it was kind of warm. Well, that is exactly one of the conditions under which the right kind of yeast strain produces a lot of isoamyl acetate and probably also a little bit of the clove flavor that's called 4-vinyl guaiacol. Those are the characteristic fruity flavors that he got in his fermenter. And if he had the right yeast strain, which I assume he did because he was trying to make a Belgian beer like the typical Grimbergen taste that is sort of very phenolic. If he had the right yeast strain, which I assume he has, and if you ferment it at a little bit above the recommended temperature range, then you can accentuate the banana flavors that come from isoamyl acetate.
I love it. I was going to say,
Wow.
you when you say simple, I thought I'd understand it, but no, it wasn't simple. Straightforward.
I mean, that was exactly what I was going to say.
But you recorded it, so you can listen to it again and then go and Google the terminology that I use.
Absolutely. That's what I do every time I talk to you, Horst. Wait,
So it's interesting that he said he thought it was over 100 degrees, like 40. I mean, that seems.
But he had a broken thermometer. So what he
knows?
said was really, it was kind of lukewarm or something. To
he
the hand.
used the word warm. Yeah. You would probably say hot if it was hot.
Yeah.
I don't know where my hands differ.
Remember our body temperature? You have to go above 100 to think it's hot. So,
Okay.
I mean, 80 degrees would feel warm, 75 degrees would feel warm, and some yeast get a real spurt after that. So, and then when they go crazy, yeast cannot control what it issues forth in terms of metabolic byproducts. It can only selectively absorb. So when the yeast goes crazy, it throws all kinds of things, both delicious ones, delightful ones, and noxious ones, into the brew. And then during a little bit of a rest period, or even during lagering, the yeast will then selectively reabsorb all the elements that it needs for its next cycle, which is the reproductive cycle. So it reabsorbs nutrients that are essential to its survival and leaves the others behind, which we can taste.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Joel, you didn't stump them. I don't have a sound for when they don't
Sorry
get
for that.
stumped. No, I know, right? I have a gong sound for when the new questions come in, but that doesn't help us really with that. Sorry, Horst. That marks the end of the first question. I should have done that before.
Rough, tough, and hard to bluff, and used to hardship. So
Our second question, Horst, is a text message. It's our buddy Stuart. He wrote me, "Hey Josh, I'm not leaving a voicemail because I don't want to hear my voice in my headphones this week. However, I do have a question for Mr. Dornbusch. It's sort of a chicken or egg situation. Does Horst think that consumers drive the trends regarding a beer style's popularity, or do the breweries mostly control that?"
well, it's a chicken and egg question. And I think my easiest answer would be both. In other words, if a brewer makes a beer he or she likes, but nobody else does, well, that brewery is going to go bankrupt. If a consumer likes a particular beer and can't find it, if you know how to talk to a brewer and maybe even suggest the recipe, then with any luck, you might get it. I think on balance, though, the egg is the first, and the egg is the brewer, because if you don't make it, the consumer cannot tell you that it likes it. So, and if they don't like it, it's not going anywhere. But if they do like it, then the brewer will make more of it. And eventually, if more and more breweries over a long period of time make the same type of beer, roughly the same type of beer, with roughly the same ingredients, using roughly the same processes, eventually that one-off will become a style. Like NEIPAs, New England IPAs, are now a style. But if I make a Cocomaniac IPA, it is just a one-off. So a style. Once a beer becomes a style, you know it has gained popularity, and I think eventually the creative kitchen for new beers is really the brewery more than anything else.
Well, and historically, not to just drag it out because I know we have a lot of questions, but historically, like you're a master of regional styles. Was that because of what the people like to drink, or was that the availability of the ingredients for that region?
That's all terroir dependent. Remember, there was a time before railways, before autobahns, before airplanes, and we didn't trade brewing raw materials over long distances. So I think you brewed with what you had, and that was it. And that included the yeast. I mean, if you live in an area where a lager yeast cannot survive, then you make ales, and vice versa.
Absolutely. Yep. So thank you, Stuart, for that question. Let me get the gong noise down to signify the end of the question, because I'm sticking with this shtick. We have a third question, another voicemail for you, Mr. Dornbusch. It is our buddy Nate from Oregon.
Oh, Oregon. I went to school.
Nate from Oregon, and I want to try to stump Horst. This is follow-up from the question that I asked about creating your own CO2 with an active fermentation, like Trong had mentioned in his first interview. I ended up making an order and got some duo-tight fittings from you guys. What I ended up doing is taking a fermentation keg with a floating dip tube. I added a bag of sugar to water in there. Gives me 5% alcohol potential. I attached my spunding valve to that keg, use duo-tight line to connect the output of the spunding valve to a reducer in order to get the right diameter duo-tight line to connect to the other gas port on a receiving keg. So in that receiving keg, I had a duo-tight fitting on there as well. My original thought process was, well, if I can get the pressure high enough from fermentation, it should carbonate both kegs. I originally had the spunding valve only set to 15 psi, so I wouldn't stress that fermentation, so I might as well drink it anyway. But what ended up happening is because there was no way for the gas to vent, both kegs went to a very high pressure. High enough that I couldn't see how high it actually was on the spunding valve. When I tried to vent it, I ended up shooting yeast from the fermentation keg into my other keg full of water, which was less than ideal. But then I had an idea. Would it be possible to put a gas check valve, a duo-tight one, in the line between my spunding valve and that receiving fermentation keg in order to have the pressure leave the spunding valve only and not come back through? Would that allow me to pressurize the second keg higher than what I have the original keg set to? I don't know if it's possible or not. I'm not a physicist. I don't understand pressures. My safety consideration in this, I figured worst case scenario, if they did get to too high pressure on the secondary keg, it would just blow the PRV, so we wouldn't have anything exploding. But Horst, is this possible? Can I set a gas check valve in line with my spunding valve to have the pressure in a secondary keg be higher than the fermentation keg that I am using? I'm looking forward to see what you guys think about it. Thank you very much. You're all doing a great job as normal. Have a good day. Bye.
Now, Horst, I kind of set you up because you don't really brew on our scale. And this is a very niche topic for home brewers, but I thought he addressed you personally. I'd try to throw it out there for you. Trying to carbonate another keg with the fermentation from the first keg is the gist. Did you grasp the question and have a response for our buddy Nate?
I was waiting for the question because it was a very complicated preamble. It was sort of like the soliloquy to Macbeth was longer than the drama. First of all, I would never carbonate a beer with the gases from a carbonating beer because you get all kinds of noxious volatiles that come out of that spout. which you really which you want to blow off into the air, especially sulfur compounds, but also several others. So if you then use those gases to carbonate another beer, you're merely transferring not just CO2, but also gunk into the next batch. And I don't think that is the purpose. You're going through an enormous amount of complexity to create something very simple and, in my view, probably counterproductive. I do not know if that's the answer. I'm sure that what he's rigged up in terms of physics is totally possible. I mean, I have absolutely no doubt about that. But is it sensible, meaningful to go through that much complexity to create a result that may be less drinkable than if you used a much simpler and standard method of carbonating your next batch?
You sound like my father when I was 17 telling him my life plans. It's like, is it sensible though, son? Is it sensible?
Well,
I agree. Yeah.
You remember KISS?
Yes.
Simple, stupid?
Yeah.
I don't mean to call him stupid. Sorry, I apologize.
We have a good audience. You're good. You're good. Yeah.
But yeah, you can do that. If really, look, you don't want the tool you use to be more of an issue than the objective you intend to pursue. If the objective is to make beer rather than having a complex engineering project succeed, then, well, you might as well skip the beer making altogether.
I love it. And you nailed it though, in regards to a lot of people who homebrewed, Horst, are engineers. They are. Of course,
I know that. Yes.
So they come up with the greatest ideas of schemes and whatever to work out. And yeah, Nate, like
I call it gratuitous complexity.
Gratuitous. I'm going to use that. That's like me saying frugal instead of I'm cheap. I like that. I like it.
All right.
Nate, thank you for submitting the question. We are moving on. Another voicemail question. It's question. Oh, sorry, forgot about the dong. Question number 4. It's our buddy Jared from New Jersey.
Okay.
Hello,
my wife is from New Jersey.
Happy Hour crew, and hello, Mr. Horst Dornbusch.
Hello.
This is Jared from New Jersey. Mr. Dornbusch, I've actually read a couple of your books and gained a lot from them, so I'm glad for another opportunity to hear from you. And I'm hoping one of you all can help me with a stumper, at least for me. I have a fair amount of experience kegging my beers and have always had good results on the dispensing side. However, I recently made my first batch of hop water, and it pours extremely foamy. It's about 100% foam when I pour it. I serve it at the same temperature and pressure as my plain seltzer water, which is at 28 psi and around 38 degrees Fahrenheit. And I don't have any issues with foaming on my seltzer water. I tried increasing my hop water line length from 10 feet up to 16 feet of 4 millimeter interior diameter EVA barrier lines, but that didn't seem to make a difference. Is there a chemical component of the hops that is making it so foamy as compared to my plain seltzer water? Do you think I should try increasing my line from 16 feet up to maybe 25 feet? Or do you have any other recommendations or troubleshooting I should try first before putting down another $20 on extra tubing? As always, I appreciate the show, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
It's a good question. Hop water has become very popular with people who enjoy the kind of essence aroma of hops, but they're trying to stay low ABV, low calorie for whatever reason. Does it make sense to you why a hop water, which is in theory just seltzer water with the hops, why is it giving him foaming issues when the other seltzer water in the exact same conditions is not?
I don't quite understand the question still. So he wants to make hop water, and I don't see what the problem is.
He's saying his
simple hop tea. That's all it is.
And so he has a keg of it, and he has a keg of non-hopped seltzer water. The seltzer water pours just fine. The hop water is giving him foam, excessive foam when he's pouring, and he's wondering, is there a chemical condition of the hops that is causing it? Because that's the only variable in his equation.
That's, I have to say, I do not know. I think it has something to do, though, with the difference in the surface tension, the molecular surface tension of the seltzer water as opposed to the water with oil in suspension. I suspect that's what is at stake. If the molecular surface tension increases with the hops, which I'm sure it does, and you carbonate it, then you will get the foam, because that's merely bubbles raising to floating to the top, and I think that's the explanation.
I know this is this.
He should lower the pressure of his hop water and see if he. Obviously, he says that the foam is undesirable. That's another question. Why should it be undesirable?
Yeah, you're asking him why. Yeah, well, he probably doesn't want to, like, what do they call that pour in Czech when it's is it not milking? What's the
slow pour, like this,
or the little bit of beer and the ton of foam rather. I forget. It starts with an M.
If you remember, they say low foam, medium foam, and large foam.
Yeah, it's like milking or something is the name of the. Either way, where I'm going with this though is he probably
treat the hop water like a champagne and serve it in a flute.
Ah, I like that. Or like you said, if lowering it. So I know
that
this
may not be an answer, but
I know,
it might get me off the hook.
And no, we're giving it to him. I think I have a noise for it too. The questions, James. Don't you hate my sound effects, James? I see that face. I know this is the Stump Horse Challenge, but I do want to throw it to Todd just real quick if you have an answer, because right now he has 16 feet of EVA barrier tubing and his temperature is on point. What would you do, Todd, to mitigate the foaming of a hop water?
So I had a similar issue when I was making a seltzer a while back, and really, the same thing was happening. I have no idea why, but no matter what I did, it just was all foam when I poured it. And after I poured it for a while, it totally calmed down. So I don't really have an answer, and I don't know why it calmed down, but it did. And then it started pouring a lot better. I don't know. I mean, beer has hops in it, so has hop, has the same thing in it. So I don't know why it wouldn't pour well. I would look at other possibilities too, like maybe transfer it into a different keg or try something. Maybe there's some problem with some other component that's causing it. It's not actually related. I say put it in a different keg. What I would do is, what I meant to say is switch the keg. So the one that's the faucet that's pouring well, I would put that on that faucet and see how it pours on that other faucet to see if it could be something in the system.
Oh, right.
The thing about foaming is, of course, in general, the line length and the temperature all play a role. So if you curl up a long line, pretend you can do that, and put it into an ice bath, and then see if that drops the temperature, that might mean that you're stringing your line through an ambient temperature that's too high. Is possible.
We do have a very popular video that I'll link in the description, guys, for people watching who may benefit from it as well. It's called Managing Foam on a Draft System. Todd did it, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years ago now. It's been a while. So
universal issue in all carbonated drinks.
Yeah, but it is a tough one because a very key component of hop water for most people is that very strong carbonic bite. So he probably doesn't want to sacrifice the bite for lacking foam. So he's going to have to find some middle ground, right? There's a Venn diagram of overcarbonated and perfect pour, and he's just going to have to be in the Venn diagram somewhere in the middle. But anyways, Jared, I'm counting that because I'm trying to give away as much of Todd's money as I possibly can. So thank you, Jared. Don't give me that look, boss man.
Wait a minute. There's 10 questions. This could cost me $500.
No, because the first ones haven't already.
I'll split it with you.
Okay, deal.
No. Now, here's the final answer. The result of the foam could be the result of what we call, are you ready for this?
Oh, yeah.
Multi-collinearity of variables. That means many different independently controllable variables conspire to create a single outcome. And this is the reason why this question is difficult to answer in the abstract, and it requires experimentation, empirical experimentation in the way of a regression analysis with ceteris paribus rules to figure out which of the variables is responsible.
I like it.
Bullshit.
I was going to say, I like it, but I'm still doing it.
I know. So I think that I love that answer, Horst. Anytime that somebody doesn't know the answer, they just make it so complicated that nobody understands it. Right?
Yeah, like, oh, Horst, he explained why we can't explain it. Anyways, Jared, thank you so much for submitting that question. Y'all saw it here, guys. We have one grand winner. Everyone's getting something anyways, but thank you for that, Jared. Moving on, question number 5 is a text message from our buddy Jeremy. He said, for Horst, help me understand the science behind pressure fermentation on lagers and why adding pressure suppresses off flavors that would normally be produced by yeast when activated at higher temperatures, such as 70 or above with Fahrenheit.
Oh, it's very simple. We are looking at the exchange of substance during fermentation, the exchange of substances through basically a cell membrane. The cell wall is like a membrane. And so we are looking essentially at a form of osmosis. And the yeast activity during that osmosis, which, by the way, is controlled in part by a substance on the yeast surface called zymas, by the way, which makes yeast relatively unique compared to other microbes, to other single-cell organisms, single-cell eukaryotes. That the rapidity and the liberal issuing forth of substances is controlled by temperature and pressure. So the higher the temperature, the more slowly the yeast will react. And this way, some of the substances that it only throws out at high temperature or lower pressure will be suppressed as the membrane transfer occurs.
Are you, I know you're obviously, you started as a home brewer and you know home brewing, but you know, it's been a very big fad the last 3, 4, 5 years for home brewers to implement pressure fermentation. Especially those like me, I appreciate it because I can brew some styles in my office at 70 and just keep it under pressure, and it's going to taste as good as it did as if I had proper, lower 60s, higher 50s or whatever for a lager. Are you a fan of this utilization of science on homebrewers, or has it been around a while and we're just like cyclical? Like were homebrewers using pressure back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s as well, and it just everything goes cyclical, or?
Well, remember originally, lager brewing started in the 15th and 16th century in Bavaria. In those days, they had open vats. So you don't need pressure fermentations to make lagers. You need pressure to carbonate, but you don't need pressure to ferment. It's much more important that you have the right temperature that controls the rapidity of the yeast and what it issues forth in terms of substances. And the higher the temperature, the more unpleasant tasting substances it will produce. I think pressure fermentation like that is, I don't understand why homebrewers absolutely need to do this. Commercial breweries, they want to control everything in their process. They have their a clean, pure yeast strain. Everything is replicated from one batch to the next. So being a control freak as a commercial brewer makes sense. Being a control freak as a home brewer, to me, makes less sense. Let me put it this way.
So I think what's going on, like what the reason people are doing it though, Horst, is because when you do it under pressure, you actually don't get those off flavors because they're not able to produce under the pressure.
Well, that is exactly the same question as the previous one, where we talked about the pressure and temperature controlling the exuberance of the yeast. When there is no pressure and a high temperature, the yeast will issue forth a lot of flavors that we consider as estery, phenolic, or otherwise pleasant. So I know why we do pressure fermentations, but I mean, you say, do homebrewers need to do this? I thought that was the question.
Well, I think the reason they do it is not that they need to, it's because they don't have the ability to get down to the temperature that you would normally brew a lager with. So to make up for not being able to get to that temperature, they use pressure to suppress those flavors so that they can still brew a lager, but not have to have the cooling things that you would normally need.
That I can tell that you're talking from Texas. If you lived in Minnesota or in Ontario or even in Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories, then you would not bring that up.
Absolutely.
You can just put the thing out. Actually, if you put it outside, then you have no fermentation because the damn thing would freeze. So a lot has to do with the ambient temperature as well. And lager originated during the Little Ice Age in Bavaria, when the global temperature was much lower than it is, certainly than it is today. So the conditions under which Saccharomyces pastorianus emerged as a hybridization of Saccharomyces eubayanus, the wild yeast, and Saccharomyces cerevisiae, the ale yeast, it required nutrient depletion because of the Little Ice Age, which made fermenters too cold. So this is where lagers come from. This is how lager yeast evolved. So, and in those days, at that low temperature, especially after the summer brewing prohibition that Fed Albrecht V imposed in 1553 in Bavaria, when brewers couldn't brew between April 23rd and September 29, but could only brew in the winter. And in those days, the Little Ice Age was at its peak. That means you already had clean fermenting lager yeasts, or the lager yeasts, the lagers that occurred spontaneously because brewers had no idea what yeast was in those days. They thought it was the product of fermentation and not the cause of fermentation. That lager was already clean tasting because of the temperature. So if you're in Texas, you want to have more pressure to have the same effect that you can achieve by having the low Bavarian winter lager temperature. That is something that would not be necessary in the winter in Minneapolis.
Right. Oh yeah. Thank you. Yeah. No,
I don't know if that is an answer, but
yeah, no, it was definitely an answer. And we thank you, Jeremy, for submitting it. Moving on, we do have another, what's the next one I want to take? Okay, I'll take the voicemail question. This question number 6 for this episode of Stump Horst Challenge is our buddy Steve, speaking of Texas, from Weslaco, Texas.
Hey, Josh, this is Steve in Weslaco, Texas. Got a question for Horst. I'm trying to work through the no-chill kegging, taking the wort straight from my boil at 190 degrees directly into my fermenter and letting it chill naturally. Trying to conserve a little water here in South Texas because we always have drought conditions. But I'm having trouble with the bittering hops. The beers are always coming out too bitter. I'm assuming that's because the amount of time is exposed to heat. But I'm trying to figure out, do I put them in later in the boil, like 10 or 15 minutes later in the boil, Do I reduce the amount? I wonder if Horst could guide me and help me out with some information. I appreciate it. I love your show. I'm watching Brew Day Live at the moment, and you're entertaining. Let's put it that way. So have a good one. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
That's a nice sort of pseudo compliment. Thanks, Steve. My dad and I do brew every month for the Trub Club. And you might be saying, what is this Trub Club, Horst? It's not Trub Club, it's the Trub Club. And we brew the recipe of the month every month. And so that was just this last weekend. That's what he was talking about. But the no chill method, which our Australian audience, funny enough, is what brought me onto that many years ago, because it's very popular there, where they will do their hot side and then they put it in these little fermentation cubes that they call them and let it naturally get down to pitching temps over a day. And then they throw their yeast in. And Steve's saying his problem is not infection or anything, but it's that they all come out too bitter. Is it because the hops are just exposed to that high temperature for much longer than an hour or 90 minutes? Is that what's going on, Horst?
Well, here is the element that I believe he left out of the description of his process, and that is whirlpooling. What is the degree to which he manages to get the troop out of the wort before he allows it to cool down naturally? Natural cooling is actually something that has been practiced in Europe, especially for ages, because we call that a cool ship, right? That is perfectly normal. What it does, it aerates the wort, cools it off, and it also lets you evaporate volatiles. So there are certain beneficial aspects to natural cooling of the wort. Now, if he cools it off in what is essentially a closed environment, then he wouldn't have the evaporation of volatiles that happens in a cool ship. That's one thing. The second thing is, if his whirlpooling is not extremely efficient in this method, then when you do get hops transferred into eventually your fermentation vessel, naturally, because the temperature remains high, the isomerization curve of hops. After 5 minutes, you have 6% isomerization. After 15 minutes, maybe you have 20% isomerization. I have to look up the precise table, but eventually the curve flattens out after about an hour. However, you are then probably at about 30% isomerization. However, you can go up a little bit over a long period of time. So maybe he measures his hops for, let's say, 25 IBUs. He boils it for 55 minutes. He transferred it and he takes a lot of hops with him. That hops at that temperature will continue to isomerize, and maybe he reaches 36% isomerization or hop utilization, hop efficiency, at which point, if you look at 36% versus 30%, you are 1/6 more bitter than you'd be otherwise. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah.
So there is a perception threshold on the tongue where something, just like with heat, like a chili, a jalapeno, you can take a little bit, but there is a point where you transgress a threshold, and then it becomes almost unbearably hot, even though right below that threshold, it's still very bearable. So I don't know if that's the explanation, but as I said, he left out any reference to his whirlpooling, and I suspect that may be one factor to consider. And the other is, does he aerate like a cool ship? Does he aerate the wort that he collects for natural cooling? Is it open?
Perfect.
That is my question.
Yeah, and I actually have follow-up. Steve's he's very engaged in our audience, and he's a part of the Chub Club too, so he will definitely come back to us. So for right now, I'm going to say that your answer covers it. Sorry, Steve, you still get the $25 gift card, but not the 50. I can't just be loosey-goosey with Todd's money today. I want to be. I can't be that loosey-goosey. So thank you, Steve, for submitting that question. We'll get a follow-up. We have another voicemail question for the 7th question of the show. It's our buddy Fred from Phoenix. We know him as Blind Brew Guy. He's a good buddy. Here's our question from Fred.
Hey, Joshua. This is Fred from Phoenix, but I'm currently up in Minnesota. And I thought I'd call in with a question for Horst regarding yeast. I'm not even going to try and stump him, but I would like to hear his thoughts on why he thinks there are so many yeast strains from Europe that produce real iconic beer styles that really define the style. Whereas here in the U.S. or North America, yeast really seems to have taken a backseat to the other ingredients. I know they've been brewing a lot longer overseas, but, we've been brewing in North America for over 300 years, and it just seems like things have developed quite a bit differently with that. Anyway, I love the show. Keep up the good work, and thanks.
It's a great question. There are, all of our favorite styles, and the three of us, I do believe, are probably European. I want to speak for Todd because Todd's contrary. I can speak for James. Our favorite styles, absolutely, like German Pilsners, Czech Pilsner, that region of beer, the Kolsch, the Alt, very iconic that come from those yeast strains in Europe. What do you think, Horst, about why European yeast strains are basically defining the iconic beers that craft brewers or craft beer enthusiasts enjoy?
All right. I could now talk for several hours about that subject because it's complex. However, I shall try to condense it, okay? First, if you go, and I know you guys probably go to the Braubeviale in Nuremberg, one of the sessions at the forum is with Dr. Hutzler, and he will give a very intelligent, cutting-edge presentation about that subject. Okay, here it is. Yeasts are not very stable. They can mutate very easily. All right? Now, if you have stable fermentation conditions, which you had for centuries in Europe, only the most adept yeasts and mutations, and also sometimes back crossings between daughter cells and mothers during hybridization can occur. You have introgressions, it's called. So you have multiple strains of similar yeast, maybe some of them going back to the Saaz variety of lager yeast as opposed to the Froberg variety of lager yeast. They are chromosomally different. Some have 2 wild yeast components in their chromosome and 1 domesticated one. Others have equal shares and so on. And then they cross with each other, hybridize, they back cross and hybridize with their mothers and their fathers. So you get a total mixture. But within that natural diversity, plurality of yeast strains in a fermenter, eventually, after repitch, after repitch, after repitch, only the strongest ones, the most adept ones for the particular conditions will evolve and dominate. They become almost like they become a purer culture than just random mutations. And they, because they have an advantage, a nutritional advantage, a procreative advantage, and so on, they will become genetically very stable, even though innately yeast are genetically very unstable. And that's why when you get a European yeast, it has stabilized for centuries. So you know what you're getting. When you're breeding a new yeast or you're creating variations in a lab, these may not be quite as stable, and you don't always know exactly where they come from genetically, or in terms of you do have a concept because of genome sequencing of the genotype characteristics, but you do not know exactly how they play out phenotypically. Am I being too complex
No,
here?
I understand every word you're saying. Absolutely.
That's wonderful. So, in other words, the older the yeast and the older the beer style for which it has conventionally been used in a particular location, a particular terroir, if you wish, the more stable the yeast will be, and the beer styles you make with them, they have also been selected to have more pleasant rather than unpleasant flavor profiles. Okay.
Yep.
So I think that's really, it has something to do with yeast genetics, and it's a very complicated subject.
Yeah, well, and two things. One, Todd and James, they're going to be at the Brow. I'm not going. It's during Thanksgiving. My wife would kill me. But do y'all ever
I've heard about that. Yes.
do y'all ever have time to do sessions, or y'all are always at the booth, right, guys? Y'all don't go.
Yeah, we have to work.
Yeah.
Look at the forum. There is a Dr. Hutzler from Weinstefan gives a talk about that very subject, and then there will be a question and answer session and a round table that I will moderate also about that subject with several real experts who are doing cutting edge work on yeast genetics these days. That's a hot topic.
That is a hot topic. And as technology improves, I imagine it gets a hotter topic because of what they're able to do in labs now compared to we should be able
nowadays to go back and recreate new lager yeasts by hybridizing Saccharomyces eubayanus wild yeast strains with Saccharomyces cerevisiae domesticated yeast strains, as happened naturally in the vets in Bavaria in the 15th century. We can now do that in a lab deliberately and create brand new, totally never existing lager strains, and we can see how we can run with them, and maybe they are more alcohol tolerant, maybe they have fewer fermentation byproducts, maybe they are more thermotolerant. So this is a field where this is so rapidly developing. When I tell you something today, it may be outdated in 2 weeks.
That's true. And also, though, maybe there's a chance if we recreate ancient beer, we realize ancient beer probably didn't taste that great. I don't know. I'm just guessing. I don't know. I have no idea how ancient.
There was no lager, of course.
Yes.
There was no lager. Lager yeast evolved in the 15th century in Bavaria. Before that, all yeasts were ale yeasts.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Fred. Like I said, great question and a good topic. If y'all are going to be in Germany the week of Thanksgiving, I don't know those dates, I forget them, but go to the Brow in Nuremberg. It is totally worth it. And I bet Todd and James would love to go to a session if they could, but they have to work. So thank you, Fred, for that. Moving on. You know what? We have 3 more. Let me get through the 2 important ones, and if we have time, I'll get to the last silly one. It's not even silly.
I'll be brief in my answer, okay?
Oh, it's my fault. I drag everything out. You're fine, Horst.
And the Brow's 26th to the 28th. We'd love to have you come by the booth. So
absolutely,
I shall do that. The guy with the beard and the glasses.
Oh, I know you'll come by. I was talking about our listeners. I was giving them the dates, but we would love for you to come by. I have to tell a quick story. I know we don't have much time. But one of the funniest things I've ever seen was when Horst came to our booth and started speaking to Stefan in Old Dusseldorf language.
What?
Yeah. So, Stefan was born in Dusseldorf, and he had absolutely no idea what he was saying.
Oh, perfect, because that's how I feel when Germans talk.
There is a Dusseldorf dialect that resembles Dutch, and when I switch to that one, nobody in Germany will understand me, and certainly nobody, let's say, from Bavaria. But on the other hand, a guy from Mittenwald near the Bavarian forest, if that guy talks Bavarian German in Dusseldorf, nobody will understand him either. So that's
Pretty incredible. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Thank you, Fred, for submitting that question. Let me go to a text question, and this is a good one. And if I try to be as brief as you can, but it seems like it's a pretty in-depth question. It's our buddy Rob. He texted me and says, "Ask Horst, how does the specific mineral composition of Dusseldorf's water, historically used for brewing alt beer, affect the mash pH and enzyme activity during brewing? And what adjustments might be necessary when brewing alt beer with different water profiles?"
Okay, on that one, I will punt. Make it very fast. The person to ask is John Palmer. Water chemistry is rightfully complicated, and I always try to punt on that one and say, ask a real water chemist. This guy, John Palmer, is a chemist.
Yeah, he wrote the book.
And I, rather than making a fool of myself or putting my foot in my mouth, this is where I would prefer to declare utter or relative ignorance, okay? And therefore, you can give the guy an extra $25.
Whoa, hey!
It's, easy for you guys to give my money away.
Well, here, how about we just say this real quick, or ask this for the question, Horst. Is it possible now with an RO water and having all the minerals available, can I truly mimic one for one the water of Dusseldorf and replicate?
The short answer is yes. Start out with distilled water, pure, totally pH neutral water, and just look up the water profile of Dusseldorf, which I don't have in my head, but it's available, how much manganese, calcium carbonate, zinc, and so on is in there. And then you simply put those chemicals in the right proportions into your brewing water, and you're all set. I just don't have the ratios and particular minerals for Dusseldorf in my head. But they are, this is the sort of thing where, you look at a table with the 500 numbers, and then you ask me the one 5 lines down and 3 columns to the right, that one. Which one was that again? That is the sort of thing where I go and look it up, because that's.
Thank you. Yes, you look it up. That's what I do.
I have so much in my head. If I were to keep that, I would have to do a big dump of knowledge, which I prefer not to do.
Horst,
what's your name again?
Yeah, right. I say this all the time on the show, Horst. We are living in the best time ever to be a home brewer because we all have supercomputers in our pockets. It's so easy to just pull.
Yeah, that's 10 times the size of a Cray computer, which required a building.
I wasn't alive during those times, but and I will throw the extra plug, or I'll bring it back up, that he said the John Palmer book. I'll put a link to it to the Amazon store.
So interestingly enough, I just received that a few days ago
as a gift. You bought it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I bought it, and I haven't had a chance. Actually, it was given to me for half price because I joined the American Homebrew Association.
Oh, they're doing that. They're doing that promo right now. Okay.
Yeah. So I that's the book I chose, and I have not had a chance to read it yet. But
it's very complicated.
Yes.
He wrote a big book about it, and you want me to give you an answer in 10 words? Forget about it.
Well, and
let's go to the next question.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So thank you, Rob, for submitting that question. The next question is our last voicemail of the show. It's our buddy Walter from Massachusetts.
Oh, where I used to live for 40 years.
Hey, Josh. This is Walter from Massachusetts. I was calling as your Stump Horst challenge. I have been growing hops at home for a couple of years now, and they're spreading sometimes like 2, 3, 4 feet away from where I originally planted. How do you manage that when you just want to keep one vine growing up your support? And what time of year are you supposed to do that in order to keep it from spreading all over the place? Thanks. Bye.
Walter's a good friend of the show.
You need two things: a shovel and a calendar.
Yes, that is true.
The hops. There is, of course, the sexual propagation of hops between a male and a female. And what we do is we tear out all the males in a hop garden because we want the female flowers and nothing else. And that forces the rhizomes to come back every year. Now, if the rhizomes can grow, so what you want to do is take your shovel, look where the rhizomes is, and after the harvest, when the plant is dormant, it has taken back all its nutrients from the photosynthesis and all that. It's all done. Then you make sure that you have only that. You keep the rhizome short. Remember, propagation by rhizome occurs when you open up the soil and you take slices of the rhizome and plant it next to the old one, or you send it to another hop yard. So you have to control the rhizome underground, and you do that after the plant has gone dormant. And because he lives in Massachusetts, I suggest he doesn't do it when you have permafrost in the ground.
Absolutely. That's a great answer. And
the shovel and the calendar, and he can do it.
I'll say you just took it from me. That's the shovel and the calendar. That's my answer. That's what I would have said.
Thank you. Thank you, Horst. I appreciate you knowing the answer to that, because I calculated earlier that if you didn't know the answer to that, I had to pay another $25. It would be greater than our sales on the website today.
Okay. Cheapskate.
we have one final question, and this this is a text message. It's softball. It's a very softball, and it's very subjective. Our buddy John did write in. He said, not really a question that's going to stump him, but please ask him how best to know how to pair styles of beer with certain types of food. Do you have any input, Horst, on, well, yeah, an IPA tastes better with a taco and a lager tastes better? I mean, like, is there a rule of thumb?
Very simple answer. One, you should buy Garrett Oliver's book, The Brewmaster's Table. That's the classic. Second, you can do one of two things. It's always the same thing: complement or contrast. So if you have a sweet dessert, then you can create a contrast with a sour beer. Or you can have a complement that is like you put a scoop of vanilla ice cream into a chalice of pastry stout. That is a complement. So you can create a contrast or complement. So if you have for instance, take a Jaipur chicken with yogurt, straight yogurt, and rice. Okay, so it's a curried chicken. The best thing to do with that is, the beer style I would pick is a Belgian wheat beer, a bière blanche, like an Allagash white. It goes absolutely well because the coriander serves sort of as the palate cleanser for the curry chicken. So that would be a bit of a contrast. So maybe depending on how your culinary orientation is, you can say it's even a complement depending on which. The curries can be very different. They can be high in ginger, or they can be high in spices, hot peppers. So it depends on the type of curry you have. But I would definitely douse. It's like a fire engine. You douse your palate with the Allagash white. It's a perfect combination. For instance.
Yeah, no, I love that. And like I said, I was going to chime in and say, or ask you, it seems like terribly subjective anyway, because all of our palates. I mean, yeah. And my palate's not refined. So Kolsch tastes great with everything. It turns out it complements everything.
Oh, brother.
Take mussels. So if you take a very aromatic beer with mussels, so like a Hull melon or a beer brewed with Nelson Sauvin or something like that, you use very aromatic, but not citric, but very aromatic hop varieties. Strüsselspalt, Triskel, Elixir from Alsace. You make a beer with that and turn it into like a Helles or some kind of a pale ale, but not a bitter one. And then you pair that with the mussels, steamed mussels, that would be wonderful. For instance,
I love it. And it's also one that, again, we're living in the best time ever. People can experiment with this at the home level, right? To get it refined in on, oh yeah, this style of beer and this type of food and so
perhaps
on.
To finish this off, the way to look at it, pretend beer is an herb or a spice.
Oh, okay. I like that.
So you have your dish, and instead of adding coriander or sage or whatever, you think of a beer that could function almost like an herb or a spice in that dish. And then you might be on the correct track.
Perfect. That's great advice. John, thank you so much for submitting that. Horst, you survived. Only gave away 2 extra gift cards of Todd's month. Todd, you should be happy. He was batting 80%. That's a good batting average, man. For Horst, he hit it out of the park 8 out of 10 times.
Thank you, Horst.
Yeah, thank you. I want to make this a monthly thing. No.
When I see you in Nuremberg in November, I will buy you a beer.
Deal. That's a deal.
Yeah, but it has to be at the Brow, and it has to be at one of the booths that people give it away.
I just persuade one of my friends to give you beer.
Yeah. We had some very good. Remember the stand right next to ours? They had beer from all over. It was very, very good. It's kind of an organization of companies that do a booth. I don't know if you remember. It's some sort of a German club or organization. I don't know if you remember. They were right next to us, and they had probably 40 or 50 beers on tap.
Yeah, but I had to leave because I had obligations. Remember, I don't go there to drink beer. I go there because I have to.
You work.
Right. Me too.
All three of y'all are working, man. That's why I didn't go this year.
It's like my commute, I have to go to Bavaria 3 or 4 times a year. It just sucks, man.
Well, Horst, we sincerely appreciate your time today.
Yes, thank you very much for taking the time to do this.
I look forward to getting pictures of the 3 of y'all in Nuremberg here in 2 months now? No, pardon me, it's November. So 3 months?
The end of November.
Yeah, so there's still some time, but either way, I know they're looking forward to seeing you, and hopefully we get you on the show more than just once every other year. So we'll hopefully talk to you soon.
Okay, guys, it was fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Horst.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you could go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or even better, call it in to 325-305-6107. And when I use that voicemail on a future episode, you get yourself a $25 gift card. Thank you to our show sponsors like Muntons Malt, premium grains for a better brew day. If you aren't already brewing with Muntons, give them a try by joining the Trub Club at a recipe receiving level. For the best hops available online, give our friends at hopsdirect.com a visit and pick up what you need for your next brew day. Also, get a pack of Imperial yeast along with premium recipes from us when you join the Trub Club. Again, go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and come brew with us. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thanks for listening.